Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
All right, it's a little bonus episode here of Purple Daily. The Vikings are so hot, 2-0 to start the season. So much excitement. Judd is exchanging barbs with the head coach at press conferences. We're gonna be floating throughout the season, just a bonus episode or two in addition to the regular Monday through Friday, or I guess 7-day-a-week schedule here on Purple Daily. So this will be Judd's practice notes, Judd's press conference notes from being out at Twin Cities Orthopedic Performance Center. But let me just take a quick stroll through Prize Picks here, where you can win up to 100 times your money right now on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. And I'm on the wide receiver, or I guess it'd be the receiving yards section for the games this weekend. And right now, Justin Jefferson sits 84.5. Nico Collins with the Texans, 74.5. Diggs, 48.5. And I don't know if they've got, because the uncertainty with Addison, so I don't know if they're putting any other Vikings receivers on here. But hey, here's how it works. You go to Prize Picks, select between 2 and 6 players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code PURPLEDAILY to get $50 instantly when you play just $5. That's code PURPLEDAILY on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play just $5. Prize Picks, run your game. All right. Judd's practice notes. You got the right shoes on?
Yeah, you know what? In fact, that's where we should start, because I did wear the right shoes. So
very important.
Now we got done recording earlier than we did the previous week. And so I wasn't in such a hurry. So it was actually not as, like I wasn't frantic and trying to just put shoes on. So that helped a lot. But yes, I looked and it was both of my new. I just frantically put my shoes on. I wore my gym shorts and I took off. Now yesterday, nicer shorts, same shoes. I was pretty.
Yeah, I feel like you shouldn't be wearing gym shorts to, like official Vikings press conference.
No, you know what? No.
Class it up
they
a
wear.
bit.
No, they do it. I do it. Coaches wear like.
Well, yeah, coaches do it.
Well, if coach does it, why can't I do it?
Do you have a whistle around your neck too?
I got a notebook. I got prying eyes. I'm not there to win. Like just to make this very clear, I don't go out there for the sake of our viewers and listeners to win fashion contests. Yeah. I go out there to get information. So, you know what? Who cares what I look like? What's important is what goes in the noggin for you.
Yeah, I love the exchange. I think the Score North Twitter account posted this the beginning of the press conference where you kind of follow. Kevin O'Connell looks at you because 2 days ago you had asked him, or Monday or whatever. You didn't you say something like, "Man, you look tired."
I said you look exhausted still.
Yeah, and so he started his press conference yesterday looking at you, saying, "How do I look today? Do I look?"
Yep. And I said,
he looked fresh. He looked a little fresher.
That's what I said. I said, you look chipper. You look great. You look fantastic. To which then it was asked if I had worn the same shoes. And I said, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, if look, it's sports. When things are going well, if you can't have fun, you're never going to have fun.
Yeah. Well, even if I just want to tell Nick Sirianni, dude, okay, things aren't going well. Just take a deep breath, bro. This is your dream job. Yeah. It's not that serious, like getting into these arguments with reporters. Just put a smile on, bro.
Well, it's got to be the right person. Like, this is not an exchange that you would have with, let's say, Mike Zimmer.
No, probably not.
So.
Hey, coach, you look pretty exhausted. Bleep you. Get out of my.
Bleep you. You look awful yourself. But practice notes and quotes, because we had access to O'Connell, to Darnold. I talked to Stephon Gilmore. I talked to a few players. And it's fun right now. Like, the buzz is fun. Like, 2-0 is fun. Basically for the first time in his entire career, Darnold is being talked about positively, because he's been talked about a lot, right? Yeah. Like, he's been talked about. But it's always like, well, what's wrong with Sam Darnold? He's a flop. And so now, at least for the first 2 games, positive talk there. I want to start, though, with a question I asked, because I thought the answer was fascinating. I asked Darnold about the deep ball. So I asked him about the pass, and I said, since training camp started, you've hit that pass. Like, that was not, it was a beautiful pass on Sunday, But Phil, I don't think that like we were like, oh my God, we never saw that before, right?
No. In fact, it's funny because in training camp, sometimes they run the rest of the way. You've probably seen 90-yard passes, in terms of the catch and run in training camp.
And I remember reading something, because I didn't talk to him at the time. I remember reading something that he had actually worked on that because he basically said, because I mean, I knew Darnold was a flop. I didn't like break down his games. So I was like, could he always throw a gorgeous deep ball? And then I read something that he had worked extensively. So anyway, I asked him about it, and his first response was the canned standard, I'm always trying to improve my deep game and blah, blah, blah. Which is great. That's fine. But I said, but you didn't develop a strong arm. Like your arm was clearly strong. Like that was an attribute that you brought from college. Mm-hmm. I said, what have you done to get the accuracy? Because I think you could have thrown that pass to Jefferson 5 years ago, but it would have missed Jefferson. I mean, he dropped it right in the bucket. And to go back to week 1, the 44-yard pass against the Giants from his own 10 was gorgeous too. Not as deep, but it was gorgeous. Mm-hmm. And so he went into an explanation I thought was really intriguing. He said it has to do with the fact that he has fixed his mechanics starting with his head. He said, I keep my head still now. He said, my inclination as a person and player was to jerk my head and look. So like as he's going through the mechanics, he would almost be anticipating where the ball would go. I would liken his explanation to a hitter keeping his head tucked, which is tough because you fly out a lot. So I thought it was because this is what I wanted. Like, so this is a huge step. And I don't know if Phil, if this is O'Connell driven, if this came from before.
That was my question. Is this something that KOC... I would guess Kyle Shanahan was savvy enough to pick up on a couple mechanical things too, right?
This is the thing is like the interesting underlying story here, if this continues, is that the year in San Fran, we've talked about this. Like, I think it's a tremendous advantage, especially when things have not gone well for an extended period of time with franchises that probably didn't develop you great. I think it's a tremendous advantage to go to a great infrastructure and watch and learn. But then what we don't see is behind the scenes, people are trying to help you, right?
Yeah.
But I just thought it was intriguing. He said the key to that ball now being a completion is I keep my head still. I keep my mechanics basically tight. And that's why the ball can find the receiver as opposed to sailing or probably being underthrown.
We don't know who to give credit. Maybe it's Sam Darnold with like a trainer or whatever, like in the offseason, but I will say, and this is just some speculation here, Kyle Shanahan comes from, the Mike Shanahan, Gary Kubiak, the coaching tree and system. He doesn't necessarily have a background in quarterback expertise. He has a background in system X's and O's expertise. Kevin O'Connell has both. So Kyle Shanahan was not like a big-time college player or certainly never played in the NFL. His dad was a great NFL coach. I think Kyle Shanahan played wide receiver at like a smaller school, but did not have a prominent playing career. Kevin O'Connell comes from prominent coaching trees, everything from Belichick as a player over to Sean McVay, and he's worked with Kyle Shanahan, but also was a third-round pick as a great athlete, a quarterback coming into the NFL. Mm-hmm. So I think, again, like Kyle Shanahan is right now higher up on the coaching pecking order, and a bunch of other guys are too. But when you combine Kevin's experience, X's and O's system experience, and the different coaching trees he's been a part of, and then his ability as a former professional NFL quarterback, third-round pick, to maybe spot some mechanical things or things that he wishes he would have done differently, it's an interesting coaching stew, an interesting coaching resume that he brings to guys like Sam Darnold.
Yeah, and so Sam's point was keep my head still, keep my eye on the target. But these are the type of things, though, that I think are intriguing, but because they're tangible. Like we could talk about, well, Sam's been unlocked. It looks great. Okay, but my question is how, why, like what happened? Because, every quarterback taken like top 5 had some amount of great physical talent. Mm-hmm. And then they get to the pros, and I think at times it's mentally they might not be as strong as people thought, but there's certainly times that physically, like Sam Darnold profiles really well. So it's like, okay, why did he fail? And it's not going to be like all these massive things. Well, he just wasn't good.
Yeah.
No, he failed because he didn't get the proper instruction. To be honest, too, I think this becomes a key thing. If you look at the majority of quarterbacks, and so I'm not talking the superstars who step in or a guy like Mahomes sits for a year and takes off. I'm talking the majority of quarterbacks. At what age do they start to really click? Because it's a maturity thing for some of them.
And the age that they normally click, and you might say, well, I mean, C.J. Stroud. Okay, well, let's take some of the outliers.
That's what I'm saying.
Andrew
Patrick
Luck.
Mahomes has to go away from this conversation.
There's going to be outliers that it just, for whatever reason, whether it was incredible coaching or they are just like aptitude-wise, you take those outliers out. Yeah, like you probably need 3 or 4 years historically before you start. And does that arc of how long it takes a quarterback to start feeling comfortable match the arc of patience with an organization, with fans, with media? I mean, we can talk more about this. We've got it earmarked to talk about quarterback development with Thor today on Thursday, the main Thursday episode. But we are seeing on both ends of the spectrum across the NFL what it takes to develop a quarterback. And like Bryce Young is being let down big time over here. Caleb Williams, I think, is being let down right now. Hey, dude, get out there and just run around like an idiot with a defensive head coach that doesn't know what he's doing.
Right.
And then you've got this undercurrent of Baker Mayfield's, Sam Darnold's, Geno Smith's that just kind of like they got punched in the mouth right away. They weren't ready either because they weren't good enough right away or the system and the infrastructure wasn't good enough. But it doesn't mean that they're worthless and should never be given another chance. But like, how many guys are just cast aside?
Right.
Hell, Kevin O'Connell might have just been cast aside in his mind, right?
I think he thinks he has been.
Boy,
was.
Let me sit for 5 or 6 years and then come back.
So I think Geno was a case, and I don't know what his maturity was like, but Jets, right? Dumpster fire. I think Baker, a lot of it was him, and I think he's matured.
Yeah,
I think he was sort of a punk.
And he still has a little tood at the podium too. He's being asked some questions about like, you can tell he's got a look on his face when people ask him, you used to be garbage and people wrote you off and now you're great, that he's kind of got, but the way that he answers those questions now is much less combative. You can tell that he doesn't love the question, but he takes a deep breath and then he gives you a thoughtful answer. Whereas before he might just dunk on the reporter in Cleveland.
That Carolina thing, and I think that the commonality between Darnold and Baker is this. The commonality is, I think that Carolina thing for sure with Baker humbled him a lot. Mm-hmm. Like you get let go, you get picked up, but again, you know what? Get picked up by whom? The Rams. Now you're in this structure and culture where everyone, so like it's not a fluke where you succeed if you don't turn out to be a star, but you still have the ability to be successful. Item 2, let's get to the injury report because the Vikings the Vikings and Texans are both long ones. So not practicing on Wednesday, Brian O'Neill, elbow, Dallas Turner, knee, Jordan Addison, ankle. Here's my guess. O'Neill, I think, plays. I think he's not fine. I think he plays. He's a tough, snot-blowing right tackle.
Yeah.
Addison, I think there's no chance. I think at the best, he comes back against the Packers a week from Sunday. Dallas Turner, I'm guessing, does not play.
Okay, interesting.
I'm guessing he's out. That's a total guess. There were 5 guys who were limited in practice: Garrett Bradbury, Justin Jefferson, Aaron Jones, Ivan Pace Jr., and Van Ginkel, who clearly is on probably a very smart schedule of rest. So, like, with him, I have zero concern now. Jefferson, I think, plays. Unless something goes wrong, like unless he has pain the rest of the week, I think he plays. He during the open period of practice, we didn't see him, but he clearly came out, according to the report, and did some work. And Aaron Jones said he is fine. So he hurt his hip after the fumble. So it wasn't during that. It was, I think, the series after. And came back. Also, don't know if you saw this. Aaron Jones says he has a touchdown celebration plan called the Bank Vault.
The bank vault. So like a U.S. bank.
A U.S. bank vault.
Thing.
Because he likes to do the Lambeau Leap. And in his press conference or his session with us yesterday, he said, I got something planned. And so towards the end, I'm like, you got your own Lambeau Leap? And he's like, that's right. I'm calling it the Bank Vault.
Do we have any idea what the bank vault is? Is it like jumping? Is it like a Lambeau Leap or just?
Yeah.
Oh,
but
vault.
It's a vault.
We're vaulting.
Yeah,
it's
he's
the
a bank vault. It's very creative.
Got it. Okay.
Very creative.
Okay. I love how far we've come where last year starting running back carried the ball 170 times and did not score a touchdown. And we're going into week 3, and this year's starting running back is already planning touchdown celebrations presumptuously, which is great. He's awesome, man. And the work that Ty Chandler did too in that game, just bouncing to the – it's very nice to have two running backs that can bounce to the outside, get around the edge for 8 or 10 yards.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Man, where has that been?
And Jones, went into fairly extensive conversation about the fumble. He said it was a great play by Warner, but I have to hold on to the ball. He explained this. He said, I didn't lock my wrist, which, I mean, is a technique, but he didn't lock his wrist. And so the ball was susceptible. Yeah. And when Fred came in to make the play, if you go back and watch it, at first it doesn't look like he's going to punch it. And then he comes in the last second and does. So nice play. But
I think he's a Hall of Famer, right? Fred Warner.
Oh, I think so. I mean,
not that that's an excuse for fumbling on the goal line.
Right. That performance on Sunday was awesome. But, if you go back, Jones does not have a history at all of fumbling. And so I'm not concerned. Like, I don't think that this is now going to lead to like the last 2 years. Now, the Vikings do need to clean up the fumbles. Don't get me wrong. But I'm not concerned that this is going to become any type of chronic problem with Jones. The one Houston injury that intrigues me, because I guess he had 0 problems during the game, but he sat out the Texans practice. Wide receiver Nico Collins, hip and foot. That's a very interesting.
He's their number one target too.
Yeah,
he is their. He is their. If Stephon Gilmore is going to be shadowing someone, it's likely not Stephon Diggs.
So it would be Nico
Collins.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing he plays. But I went this morning and looked at the reports from the Texans folks, and there was nothing that occurred during the game, like where he limped off or he looked bad. So that's something to keep an eye on, because that changes the game somewhat for sure if he doesn't play.
Yeah, but you know what though?
They're still good.
That's unfortunate for the Texans, but again, the Vikings are down a top 5 pass catching tight end and one of the best number 2 wide receivers in the NFL. Like, sorry. This is what happens in the National Football League. 100%. I know you don't.
I'm just saying that was an interesting. That could change things, and I do think I think Justin plays, which is at the end of the day the most important thing.
Yeah, the Texans also, if they need to, if they're looking at the Vikings and saying, "Boy, you guys go pretty light in terms of because there's a lot of snaps where the Vikings are putting out maybe one true defensive lineman or none." Like the third downs where, you're only doing it in the must-pass situations.
Sure.
There were times where the Vikings did not have a down defensive lineman in the game. It was like 4 edge rushers. Jihad Ward, who's technically an edge rusher, he's also like 255 pounds. So do the Texans look at the Vikings and say, hey, okay, if you're going to be putting extra defensive backs on the field and putting extra edge rushers on the field and not enough weight and meat up front, we're just going to run the ball with Joe Mixon and pound it down your throat for 3 hours. It'll be interesting to see how teams. Now, you could argue the 49ers kind of did that because they ran for 100+ yards with their backup running back, and we're still almost down by 20 points if Aaron Jones doesn't fumble.
You are correct. Speaking of the aforementioned Joe Mixon, ankle did not practice.
Okay.
Texans got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 guys on the injury report. None of them were full participants. Chris Boyd with a hip might not play. I know you're going to miss him.
Zim, I love you, Zim, I'm sorry.
Well, you know what's funny? Of all of the shots Mike took, his Chris Boyd one was 1,000% right. That guy always drove me crazy. He wasn't.
So did Chris Boyd I don't remember Chris Boyd taking a shot at Mike Zimmer.
Podcast.
Why is Chris Boyd on a podcast?
He went on a podcast and I guess took some shot. But
does he have his own podcast?
No, it was I think a player's podcast, but not his. But he took a shot at Zim, and Zim was right though. He took more penalties on special teams, and he would unnecessarily celebrate at times. It's like, what are you doing?
Dude, you're down by 30. Why are you breakdancing after a special teams tackle?
It's like the end of that. The one that drove me crazy was what was the primetime game against Pittsburgh where the Vikings took a pretty significant lead?
Yes.
Was that 20?
Or
21?
So the Vikings almost blew that game, right? They were up by 4 touchdowns.
So that game ends with Freiermuth in the end zone, Harrison Smith on him, catchable ball, doesn't catch it, right? And I remember it was Harrison Smith and a veteran teammate both stopped, threw their heads back and got off the field. And 2 guys, it might have been Chris Boyd, start celebrating like they've just won a huge game. It's like you just almost blew this game and you're not that good to start with.
That's right.
Now it's God. You know what? Knock yourself out. You want to celebrate? Celebrate. You're good, right? You're winning games. But, and it was so funny because Harrison Smith and his teammate were like, we know what's going on here. This was embarrassing. And
I remember.
Guys were like, ah!
I remember that game because I almost slammed my head through the drywall, Judd. And if I would have done that in frustration, I would have called KS Drywall, providing full drywall, plaster repair, popcorn ceiling texture removal, interior painting services. KS Drywall services the greater Twin Cities metro in western Wisconsin. I think our guy Plouffe was wondering, I need some drywall. I need some painting work. Maybe our guys at KS Drywall can strike a deal with our Southern California Trevor Plouffe. But on the popcorn ceiling, if you're looking to sell your home at some point, getting that popcorn ceiling texture removed is something you can do to maybe increase the value, just modernize your home. KS Drywall, no construction project is too small or too big. Emergency repairs all the way down to small stuff. Go to ksdrywall.com to schedule a free estimate. They're also available on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. It was tune-up season here for the sports dad, and just like that, you're down 9 pounds and feeling back to your old self.
That's exactly right, and that is because of my friends at Livia Weight Control Centers. I've talked about them for a long time, and I'm going to tell you they're the best in the business if you want to drop those unwanted pounds. You know what? Fall is coming, right? The temptation, winter, to be on the couch, you add weight. How about if I told you right now you didn't need to add that weight? Because Sports Dad has the answer for you, and that is to do what I'm doing right now. Call it a tune-up, and you go in, you get consultation, you get an easy-to-follow program, good food, and all of it is going to help you not only be in better shape, but also simply healthier. One-on-one support, that's fantastic. Join their nutrition plan today. Get your first 8 weeks free, plus their medical offers weight loss medication for accelerated results, which is fantastic. Just go to livea.com, livia.com, 855-GO-LIVEA. Livia.com is where your weight loss starts. And if you're outside the state and you're like, I can't join because I'm in California, no, you can. It can all be done virtually. Just start at livia.com.
All right, let's keep going through Judd's practice notes from a 2-0 Wednesday at TCO Performance Center.
Outstanding. All right, let's get to it. At the end of the press conference, I tried to ask this as nicely as possible, and I got a good answer once I was my shoes again became a topic. But I asked O'Connell, I said, on that Ty Chandler play, because somebody had asked about a portion of the play before. I said, just to go back to that Ty Chandler play, I said, was I seeing something, or did he have an option to pass there? Again, late in the game, you need a field goal. You've just run what I consider to be a fantastic meat and potatoes play. As Phil said, maybe the best drive that O'Connell has orchestrated, and he's orchestrated a lot of good drives. And now you're going to throw a halfback pass. And so I was like, but I didn't want to say, what were you thinking?
What are you doing, guy?
Yeah, because you're not going to get a good response. So my question was I seeing something, or did the option exist? Interesting answer. Now, one, yes, he was. The goal was to throw the ball to Munt. Okay. 2 things here. One is just to be clear, I didn't like it. I think you were more okay with it than I was. But let's go into why O'Connell thinks, not Sports Dad, why O'Connell thinks it failed. Because here's what he said. He told the officiating crew before the game, because the coaches both meet at different times with the officiating crew. He told them, we might run this play, okay? But then in the moment, he didn't remind him. And he said, that's my fault because of this. Not because of the pass, but because I think his goal at the end of the day was it's deep red, right? A lot of physicality, a lot of running, right? And his goal was my intended target on this play very well could be interfered with. Play starts at the 9. In fact, if you go back and watch it, Johnny Munt is picked at the 5.
Okay. Well, but isn't that within the 5 yards?
So his route is, I don't think you can impede the route there, though. I think it has to be off the line. I think by that point in time, if you're picked, you can't be. That's my interpretation, because I thought the same thing, but I think it is, you can bump a guy off to 5 yards, but once the play has developed, you can't you can't pick him. And O'Connell's point was, and it's not surprising, he said, when a running back or a receiver goes to throw a pass, the PI rules are in effect. It doesn't change them one bit.
Yeah.
So he thought they're probably going to hit Munt, which they did, and there's going to be a flag. So I think in his mind, no matter what the result, like if it's picked, it's still a penalty. Anyway, risky play, but I thought the explanation was really intriguing, because he basically said this was my fault, not because it didn't work from Chandler's end, but because it didn't work from the end of the officials didn't see the PI because they weren't told. And he did say, the goal.
Okay.
Phil, to your point from a couple days ago, he did say the goal was to stay in bounds.
That's what I was going to ask, is because we can sit here and debate whether when you're running the ball down a team's throat, you're in the middle of a 14-play drive, do you even need to go to that club in your bag like a halfback pass? But he would argue it's the last thing they would expect in that situation is like some trickery. You're running this outside, and I'd have to go look at the play. I don't know if it was like an outside zone and you're stretching everyone, and all of a sudden a tight end breaks free, and it could have just been perfectly schemed wide open for a touchdown. Yeah. And now we're all praising the play calling. But if it blows up, it can't be an interception. So that's the first coaching point, right? If he's not wide open, do not throw the ball.
Right.
And secondly, if we're inside, is it 4 minutes or 5 minutes when I think it's inside 4 minutes when the clock stops when you run out of bounds. You can't go out of bounds with 3 minutes and 42 seconds left or whatever was on the clock there. So I think the order of things that I was upset about was saving the 49ers 40 seconds or a timeout. Now, you're probably going to make a field goal and go up by 2 scores, and it's likely not going to matter. But it could, running the clock there and making them burn a timeout or eat 40 seconds. But I would put that above the actual play call in terms of pie chart of things I was annoyed by on that play.
Right. But I like I at least like the explanation of the thought process of the trickery of we've got to include the officials. Because O'Connell should have, in his mind, gone and said, we're going to run this play now. Watch for potential penalties.
It's funny how they do that. That's a really savvy thing.
But
does Nick Sirianni do that? Or is he just raging and hiding behind Big Dom,
Who knows? But what's interesting...
Little things like that.
But this gets back to, and this would be a very interesting long-form discussion with Kevin, is, again, and this goes back to my criticism of him in the first quarter burning a timeout because he was mad at a non-call on Jefferson for the face mask. He's trying to call plays. So I'm sure what happens is he's like, I'm going to dial up this play now, and then you got to go to the official, but he didn't have time or he didn't think it. This is the give and take, right? How much is going through your head at that point? Like, you're trying to do the play calls, manage the game. Now you're like peeling off to manage the officials. Like, think about, like, this to me is one of the most intriguing things. And I don't think I've ever heard a play calling head coach go into a long form discussion about how you parse that all apart.
It's probably something that takes a few years to get comfortable with, right? Where everything's moving fast. The play clock's always winding down. You're trying to figure out what play get it to your quarterback, but you're thinking about game situation, clock winding down, timeouts left. Oh, we're going to run this trick play. I better tell the official, be on the lookout for this. Like,
Right.
You want to be an NFL head coach.
I don't want to call plays.
And like communication things on the sidelines, you might have to talk to a defensive coach about something, or
oh yeah,
it's
go back and forth on your mic thing. Oh, absolutely, no, it's a ton of stuff.
Yeah. So wow, Judd's practice notes.
That's what I got for you.
Good stuff, man. Let's remind the audience here. Well, a couple things. So you're gonna have 4 episodes of Purple Daily and the Purple Daily family of shows on your feeds today. Trenches with Boone dropped at 6:00 this morning, and he did phenomenal breakdowns of Brian Flores's crazy defensive fronts and what the offensive line is trying to account for. But also he broke down some Sam Darnold throws and some of the protections, and then a couple of the big chunk runs too. So check that out. It's more visual, so Purple Daily YouTube channel, but we also put the audio up on Apple and Spotify. We've got Thor's Day today. We've got Purple Access with Judd and Chip. Also, the Renaissance Festival, the last 2 weekends of the Renaissance Festival, which runs through September 29th. So if you're looking to bring the family, have some fun over the weekend, you can, in addition to watching the Purple, obviously, you can throw axes, wield swords, watch live armored combat jousting. The food there is phenomenal. Nordic meatballs, pork belly, burnt ends, 18 stages of entertainment, over 50 games, rides, and attractions for the kids. Discounted tickets at renaissancefest.com. We also are giving away a 4-pack of tickets to the Renaissance Festival in the Score North app. There's a listener reward section of the Score North app where we're giving stuff away, and you can register to win a 4-pack of tickets to Renfest. All right. Great work. Sparring with the head coach, delivering information for the Purple Daily faithful here.
Wednesdays
well
are big.
done, dude.
Wednesdays are big. Thank you very much. Yep. A lot of stuff happens on because it's Texans week now.
It's transition day. It's look ahead to the next. It's a big day always in the National Football League. Purple Daily, we just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.